Right, so now it's time for our Great British Debate This Out. I'm asking, is the Home Office fit for purpose? Critics have taken aim at large numbers of staff working from the Home Office. The constant bureaucracy in the Passport Office being in disarray. This all comes as 40,000 migrants have crossed the Channel this year, with the average asylum claim now taking around 480 days to process. Not to mention a backlog of 120,000 applications waiting to be handled. Furthermore, reports suggest the number of genuine claims made by asylum seekers is actually around 50%. However, certain figures in the Tory party, such as Skills Minister Andrew Jenkins, blames anti-British lawyers for their failure to fully implement the Rwanda asylum scheme, whilst others have pointed the finger at France as migrants are still coming over, despite agreeing a deal worth £54 million to patrol the coasts. But the British public think otherwise, as the GBNews poll reveals that nearly 60% of the country think that the government has lost control of its borders. So for the Great British Debate This Out, I'm asking, is the Home Office fit for purpose? I'm joined now by Conservative councillor and former SPAD to the Minister for Immigration, Claire Pearsall. Claire, SPAD is a special advisor, just in case people are wondering, what she just called her? Yes. Claire, nice to see you this afternoon. Now, first of all, the Home Office, it seems like a load of bureaucrats. OK, so you've obviously got the Home Secretary at the top, but who are the people in between? Who's the next big person? And there must be at least 4 people at the top. Who are they?
Well, from the political side, you have the Minister for Immigration, which was a cabinet position and then was demoted to a junior minister position and then is now back as a cabinet position. And you have the security minister also attending cabinet. You have the policing minister who doesn't. And then you have a minister for safeguarding who is normally one of the members of the House of Lords. So there are quite a lot of people. But I think in answer to your question, is it fit for purpose? No, I don't think it is. It is an enormous department. It looks after national security. It looks after borders, passports, policing, safeguarding of individuals, drugs policy, just to name a few. So for one person, the Home Secretary, to be in charge of all of that, you can never give everything your full attention. And I think over the past couple of decades, we've seen that it isn't fit for purpose and it doesn't work.
Well, you know what, though? I'm just sick and tired of seeing a lot of these staff as well were working from home. I know a lot of them are still working from home. And yet the jobs aren't being done. We've got a massive backlog. I don't understand why it's got so bad. Why has it got so bad?
I think it's probably a number of things. We've made some schemes available to Afghan resettlement and previously Syrian resettlement and more recently the Ukraine scheme. So you have an enormous amount of pressure on the same amount of staff to get these schemes up and running, to get individuals across borders with paperwork to this country. So if you're going to take those people away from the jobs that they were originally doing, you are going to end up in a real problem. You aren't having enough people then paying attention to backlogs in asylum claims, which should have been sorted, backlogs in passport applications and renewals, as we saw earlier this year. So I think there's an enormous amount of pressure on the staff there who are working quite hard. Yes, there may be some working from home, but in the majority, I've found that there just aren't enough people to carry out the jobs that they're required to do.
But it doesn't make any sense, though. There's loads of people there. It can't be. The system must be wrong. There's too many people, first of all, but they're not appearing to do the jobs properly. But yet you're saying that there aren't enough people. It's one of the biggest departments, if not the biggest, and there's so many elements to it. Do you think that the other side of it is other people are blaming different facets of this? For example, Skills Minister Andrea Jenkins, she sort of said it's the lawyers that she's putting to blame who've stopped the Rwanda plan and things from happening, which means it's difficult for the Home Office actually to work because there's so many things against it, for example.
Well, I think when you come to lawyers, I mean, lawyers are the ones that are doing their job. The Home Office needs to present a policy properly and well thought out, well thought through, and all of the implications that, just laid out for all to see. And I think the biggest problem with Rwanda is that it was launched very quickly. They hadn't thought through any of the consequences. And you can just see that there were going to be legal challenges. So instead of taking a little bit longer and actually working out what those challenges were going to be and able to ameliorate them on the other side, they just put it out incredibly quickly. So I'm afraid that one was a political failing, and I'm not necessarily sure that's the fault of lefty lawyers.
OK, well, Claire, stay right there. I'm also joined now by the Director for the Centre of Migration and Economic Prosperity, Steven Woolfe. Steven, your thoughts then? Looks like you're somewhere nice. It looks like some holiday destination. Are you on holiday somewhere? You're not even in this country, are you, Steven?
I've been monitoring the American immigration issue, which dwarfs what's happening in the UK.
Right.
And I've just been invited for 2 days to the American Virgin Islands.
I knew it! Right, I spotted something nice. That looks lovely there, Steve.
A rarity on a break in what is really an issue of about global immigration problems. Look, I understand where Claire is coming from about the issues about what's happening in the Home Office. We know by the large-scale numbers that are coming across that everyone would think that the Home Office is failing. I don't actually necessarily believe it's the Home Office that's failing. What is actually happening is government and senior politicians who are not supporting the Home Secretaries. For example, Priti Patel could only dream of having Boris Johnson support her fully when he brought out the Rwanda policy. And the Rwanda policy did actually set out a whole load of legal scenarios of what the immigration industry would challenge them on. What you could also ask, and again I use the word dream, is Suella Braverman needs to have a dream-like team who are capable of pushing through all the legal issues against the immigration industry. And for that to happen, for that to really happen, it means that the Prime Minister needs to get fully behind her, take on those within the Home Office, including lawyers who are not willing, as I was a lawyer myself, as a barrister, willing to support the government in their policies and take on the issue that really matters. And that is European Court of Human Rights, remove it from the agenda. Challenge the issues where we've got in the... What happens, Nana, is you say when you've got first initial decisions, only 15% of people who make asylum claims actually are successful based on the UN Convention. Almost 40% of all claims are actually those in discretion that we've given the Home Office to allow people to come. Remove that completely and they will never have a right to stay here.
It's interesting. Let's bring back Claire as well, because I want to talk to you both on this one. OK, so what about then... Because I really hear what you're saying, Stephen, about the fact that literally the Prime Minister needs to get behind the Home Secretary and support her, because otherwise what happens is everyone jumps on the back. For example, the word invasion was... They just literally, like a dog with a bone, and then they chewed on it. I mean, Claire, surely this is part of the problem.
Well, there's always going to be part of the problem. You need to have your own party on side. And for that to happen, you need to lay out your policies clearly. You need to get your colleagues on side before you can even hope that any of your immigration plans will come to fruition. I mean, I saw that with the EU settlement scheme, which on the surface looked like it would go through quite easily. But the challenges that we had going through not only our own party, but opposition parties were enormous. And it took a lot of persuading of people that we were doing things for the right reasons and that we had thought this through. And the sort of legal grid that you get was fraught with potholes of danger all over it. I mean, it is enormous, but you have to work with the parliamentary party. And it is very difficult at the moment when it is so divided. So I think there needs to be an awful lot of outreach coming from the Home Secretary and her team to individual members of Parliament.
So you would say that it's more the parties themselves and the leaders, the top of the party, who are actually their own worst enemy, and that the Home Office isn't actually that bad. And that, I mean, would you echo that sentiment, Steve?
Well, look, I've worked with many people in the Home Office. I talk to them and I discuss it because obviously when you're doing the research, you have to involve yourself with people who are trying really, really hard to work not only with their colleagues within the own department, but, for example, those in France to try and monitor and prevent those from coming across. And one of the biggest issues that you always find is when I'm talking to border force agencies, they, for example, in Albania, they say we are actually removing people and putting them back onto ferries immediately, but we never get that in the news. you also had people desperately trying hard to actually get policies through, as Claire was when she was involved in government at that time, to actually get those policies through. And what happens is you've got a whole host of Conservative MPs who are very liberal on immigration, think it's fantastic to have as many coming in as possible because they support the Treasury's view that GDP is brilliant, not GNP per capita, which is negative for the poorest people in this country. And therefore, they're also concerned and scared of being looked bad when they go to their dinner parties because they're seen as the nasty Tories again. The reality is people voted for Brexit to control immigration. People in this country and councils are concerned about the mass costs, which is running about £8 billion a year for the whole immigration this year. Think about that.
Yeah, it's too much. It really is. No, it's too much. It's unsustainable. No, it's totally unsustainable. We genuinely can't carry on with it. Yeah, it's true. It's unsustainable. Listen, Steven Woolfe and also Claire Pearsall, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for your thoughts on that question. Well, we did contact the Home Office for a statement and we are waiting for their reply. Previously, a government spokesperson has said that the government is working with all local authorities in England, Wales and Scotland to provide more suitable accommodation for asylum seekers and to end the unacceptable use of hotels, with more than £21 million in grant funding already being provided to local authorities to help them respond to challenges in their area.